Hello everyone, and welcome to the February 2019 update of the Power BI desktop. As always, we have lots of good features this month, and we're going to start with the reporting features. First on our list is some updates to the new filter pane preview, and for this month we have a bunch more options in terms of formatting, and also some improvements in terms of accessibility as well. So if I switch over to my sample file, and I open up the new filter pane and switch over to the formatting options. The first thing that I'm going to show is under the filter pane card. We've now added title text size, header text size, and a font family dropdown as well. So when I increase the title font size, you'll see that that applies to this filter's title for the pane. And the header text size applies to the headers that say are the filters on the page, the report, or the visual level. And then of course the font family applies to both of those in the pane. If I close the filter pane card and open up the filter cards card, you'll see that I also have some new options here. I can change the font and icon color here. So I can switch that from blue to yellow as an example. I can also increase the text size here as well. And I can change the font family for this, just like I can for the filter pane fonts. And I can also change the color for the input box to say a gray. And of course, for the filter cards, these options are still available for both the state of the filter when nothing is set, and also the state of the card when some filter is set. And you can change those separately, as you can see here. Like I said earlier, there's also some accessibility improvements for the filtering experience this month. I can now, when my focus is on the filter pane, tab through all of the different cards, open them up, interact with them just like I could with the previous filter pane experience as well. And if I was to go over to the visual and talk about real quick the filter icon we have here, this state is also more accessible than it was previously as well. When my focus is on the filter icon in the header, I can use the space bar to select it, and then while it is open, I can tab through the various filter cards. So you can see here my focus is on one specific one, but if I had multiple, I could tab between each of them. And then once I'm done interacting with the card, I can just hit the escape key to put my focus back on the header itself. And of course, all of these work well with screen readers as well. Next up, we have an improvement for our line charts. Since the beginning of Power BI, and we've had cross-highlighting, but on line charts, it's always been if you click on a point on a line, it would have actually selected the entire line. There was no way to select a very specific data point on the chart. Now, this month, we're finally bringing line charts to parity with our other Cartesian charts that let you cross-highlight on an individual point. So they'll now act just like, say, a stacked column chart, where if you click on a point, it selects that point instead of the entire series. Of course, you can continue to cross-highlight through the legend to select the series as well. So if I switch over to my sample report, you'll see I have a line chart here. And of course, it looks just the same. As I hover, I get the little indicator showing me where I'm hovering over. And if I click on, say, this point right here, you'll see now that I'm cross-highlighting not on the entire line, but on that point. And the indicator is a marker on the point that I am highlighting on. And like I said, if I did want to highlight on the entire series, I can still use the legend to say cross-highlight all of regular. And you'll see that the whole line is now selected in the chart to indicate it's on the series, not on an individual point. So now hopefully the experience for line charts is a lot more intuitive because, like I said earlier, it is now acting exactly like, say, a stacked column chart would. Our next reporting feature on the list is the ability to word wrap on titles. So up until now, the only behavior you would have for titles if they extend past the length of the visual was that they'd be truncated with 3 dots to indicate that there was more to the title. Now you can also have your titles word wrap onto 2, 3, or however many lines are needed to show the entire title. So if you see here in my sample file, my bottom left chart here, the title's just a little bit longer than the visual because of how narrow the visual is, and so it is wrapping to the second line. And you'd find this property to control it in the formatting pane. Under the title card, you'll see that there is now a word wrap toggle, which is set to on currently. And so if you ever have long titles and you want them to word wrap onto the second line, you can use that option now. The fourth feature under reporting is the ability to update the default visual interaction from cross-highlighting to cross-filtering. So we all know that whenever you click on a data point in a given visual, it sends out its filter state to all of the other visuals within the report page, and whenever they get that filter context, the visuals will, in most cases by default, cross-highlight, meaning that it shows dimmed out the total data, and you'll see in the normal color of the visual the filtered data, and so you'll see both of those together, the total and the filtered. But there's also another option in terms of interaction called cross-filtering, which will just show the filtered data and not the total data, which is called cross-filtering. And if you wanted to change that, you could, up until now, always manually adjust each of the visuals and how it affects all the other visuals on the page through our Edit Interactions feature. But if you wanted to change all of the visuals from cross-highlight to cross-filtering, that was going to be a lot of work. So this month we shipped a new option which lets you just switch with one click everything to cross-filter. This new option will be in the options dialog, which I will show you in a second. But just to reiterate, by default when I click on a point, the visuals, like you can see here in this bar chart, they are being cross-highlighted. Now I clear that and I go into the options dialog under File, Options and Settings, Options. And if I go it's under Current File in here, Report Settings, I'll see a new checkbox called Change Default Visual Interaction from Cross-Highlighting to Cross-Filtering. And if I check that and hit OK, now if I click on that same point, you'll see that this visual down here was cross-filtered instead of cross-highlighting. And like I said, this changes the default interaction to cross-filtering. So if you have gone in and manually adjusted individual interactions through that Edit Interactions feature in the Formatting tab, those will still apply. We're not overriding the manual changes, we're only changing the default interaction for visuals in your report. And so hopefully if you have wanted to switch to cross-filtering previously, we will save you a bunch of effort with this new option. The last feature under reporting this month is a small formatting feature to allow you to make the borders of your visuals have rounded corners. So you'll see here I've already enabled this feature for all of my visuals. If I select one of them and I open up the formatting pane, I can show you how I did that. Under the border card, where you already turned on the border and set the color, you now have this radius option. And the radius defaults to 0, which is the squared corners you all know are ready for borders. But if I wanted to edit that, I can go all the way up to 30 pixels, which is quite round. And I can do this for all of my visuals and have this nice effect across my entire report. This, like I said, this is just a small formatting feature that lets you change the aesthetic of all of your visuals. And this feature is actually done as part of a hackathon project by one of our engineers, Jonathan. So thank you, Jonathan, for getting one of your hackathon projects into the product. We have several features under the analytics section this month, and the first feature is probably my favorite feature for this release, which is our new key influencers visual. This is a preview visual, and it's also our first AI visual. AI visuals are a class of visuals that use machine learning behind the scenes to reason over your data and surface insights in a very natural way. So to use this visual, the goal of this visual is that you'll pick a KPI that you want to analyze, and the visual will figure out what matters most in driving that metric that you are analyzing, as well as find interesting segments in your data for you to investigate as well around that metric. So switching over to my sample report, like I said, this visual is a preview feature, so the first thing you're going to need to do is go to the File, Options and Settings Options dialog, and when you get there, under Preview Features, you're going to want to enable the very last one, Key Influencers Visual. And once you do that and restart desktop, you'll see the new icon right at the bottom of the report. If I deselect, you'll see it looks kind of like these little like lollipops sticking out from the left and a little light bulb on the bottom right. That's going to be your key influencers visual. And the first thing you're going to do to set it up is you're going to pick out what metric you want to analyze. And that's going to go into the Analyze bucket. In my case, I wanted to know what's going to drive certain net satisfaction scores for my products. Then in the Explain by bucket, you're going to put the fields that you think you want to analyze by. So for example, I want to know what drives net satisfaction, and so I think that the manufacturer, color, country, those might be things that affect the net satisfaction. And so I'm going to drag all the ones that could possibly affect it into my Analyze by bucket, and then the magic will start happening, basically. We'll start automatically analyzing the data and showing you the interesting results. The visual defaults to this Key Influencers tab, and on this tab, the first thing you need to do is pick which value for that metric you want to analyze. So in my case, I want to know what influences net satisfaction to be 7. This could also be a common use case of this visual is churn. So you would pick if you want to analyze did they churn or did they not churn and what influences either of those. So I picked 7, which is my highest score for net satisfaction. And in my case, in this visual, I can see that when the thing that's going to most influence my net satisfaction to be 7 is that my manufacturer is Litware Inc. And then from there, I can see all of the other factors that also we've determined were interesting and affected your net satisfaction the most. And each of these, I'm calling them lollipops, go out far, however far they do, based off of how much influence. So the farther to the right it is, the more influence it has. So Litware's the most, followed by color of the product is brown, and then there's quite a bit of a jump down to the stock type is high, and then it just decreases in influence from there. And the number inside the circle, it also tells you how much influence it has. And so if the product was made by Litware, I know that there's a 2.64 times more likelihood that my net satisfaction is going to be 7. And you can click on each of these little bubbles in the left here, and we will show you a visual on the right here that gives you some more information about that. So this visual, if I look at, say, going back to the first one, I can see that Litware, out of all my manufacturers, has way more likely to be net satisfaction of 7 compared to any of the other manufacturers. And on average, based off of this line, I can see that there's a 1.73% on average chance of it being 7, whereas for litware it's closer to 4.5. And so I can see the whole distribution, and I can also click on this checkbox to filter it down to just the manufacturers that we've determined to be influencers to that value that you're analyzing. This is really useful if the value that the category that you're looking at is has a lot of values. If I look on the left here and I go down to the bottom, you'll see that most of these were categories, and that's why they're showing as a column chart. But if I go down to the last one, this was a measure that I dropped in, or numeric field to be more exact, and the data, instead of being visualized as a column chart in this case, is actually a scatter chart instead. And so I can see that this was unit cost, and that's going to be on the x-axis, and the percent of it being 7 as my inset is on the y-axis, and I can see all the data plotted here, and the trend line lets me see what the influence is. So we can see that there's a slight increase in the likelihood of net satisfaction being 7 as the unit cost goes up. Then the second view is top segments. This view lets you see the different segments of data points that fall into the topic that you're analyzing. And so in my case, the visual is showing me segments of products that are more likely to have an insight of 7. And there is 2 in my case. So in my case, this first segment, 9.5% of the products in the segment have a net satisfaction score of 7. And I can see at the bottom here that there's also 1,169 products in this bubble. If I click on the bubble, I can get more information about that segment as well. So I'm able to see that the segment has a class, the products in the segment is classed as economy, and the manufacturer is litware. So the main information you're getting from this view is the number of data points in the segment, what percentage of the segment has the value of interest, and also the key influencers for the segment. I can also see in this donut chart the percent of the data the segment represents. So in this case, this only represents 3% of my data. If I want to learn even more about this segment, I can expand this option here. And what we're doing is we're running our insights analysis over the data in that segment to come up with even more information for you. You can see here, here's some interesting insights that came out of running insights over that data. So once you turn on the preview feature, you'll be able to create this visual, putting in the fields you want, and then anyone who consumes your report will be able to play with all the controls within the visual. They won't be able to change what fields it's analyzing, but they can play with it. They can click on each of the key influences in the top segments. They can do all the interactions, all of that stuff, so that they can explore the data. If you only want users to be able to play with one side or the other, key influences or top segments, in the formatting pane, there is an option to just disable either one of those two tabs for your consumers as well. The next two features under Analytics are some improvements to our Q&A experience. The first is that you can now ask insights questions in Q&A, which are the same kind of questions that you're asking through the right-click menu to trigger insights like explain why sales has increased between 2 dates, but now you can do it in Q&A as well. And we also now have auto-generated suggestions for you in the Q&A Explorer dialog. So I'll switch over to the sample and show both of these for you. So if I go and I open up our Q&A pop-up from the bottom left here, I'm going to start by showing you the insights questions. So I can ask things like explain the increase in sales between 2012 and 2013. And then we will automatically run insights on that question to pull up the answers. So this is literally the same results that you would have gotten if you actually had a line chart on your canvas and you saw the sales increased between both of those years, and you clicked on the 2013 point and asked, why did this increase, in the right-click contextual menu. But this way, you didn't actually have to have that visual and see that data point to right-click on it. You could just ask the question. So whenever you ask insights questions in here, you'll see that the top answer will show right here for you to look at, and you still have those controls to toggle between, say, a scatter and the waterfall chart. And you can scroll on the right here to pick between the other different insight suggestions that come up, like this one, where I can see that computers is the biggest cause of the increase in terms of the category. Like I said, we also now have auto suggestions for questions for Q&A. So you can see in the left here, where you would normally see the questions that you've added through this Add a Question button. You also have other suggestions as well, which we have auto-generated for your users. This is really useful for consumers of Q&A who need ideas of what kind of questions they can ask, without you as an author having to manually go in and add the questions as examples for them. And of course, once they've clicked on a suggested question that they like this one for top store types by sum of sales, they can still continue to modify the question and tweak it to match what their needs are. The last feature under Analytics is an improvement to our Python and R script editors. They now both use the same script editor that you are already used to for the DAX formula bar. This means you get the same great features that we've recently added to the DAX formula bar, like IntelliSense, line numbers, syntax highlighting, all of the great keyboard shortcuts. You get all of that for both the Python and R script editors now. For the custom visuals section, before I deep dive into all the new custom visuals that have been released since my last vlog, I wanted to take a minute to talk about a new feature for custom visuals themselves. Until recently, AppSource, which is the platform we use to host all of our custom visuals for all of you users to download, only offered visuals that had no cost associated with them whatsoever. And so developers of custom visuals who wanted to be able to charge for, say, some advanced features, they had to offer those visuals for download from their own sites, and they weren't able to put them on AppSource. So in order to promote visuals containing really advanced features and also support a funding model for those visuals development, we are really excited to announce that Power BI custom visuals with additional purchases are now available in AppSource. So these in-app purchase visuals or IAP visuals are marked in AppSource with a price tag of additional purchase may be required. You will be able to see that right under the Get Now button and the Save for Later button. You'll see a note that says that additional purchase may be required. And these visuals are still free to download. All of the visuals are free to download, but there may be an in-app purchase experience to unlock the more advanced features of those visuals. Now there's a whole other blog post that goes into a lot more detail on this, which I will be linking in the description. But do know that this feature now exists, and you will be able to get visuals that are taking advantage of this feature. And the first set of visuals to do that, to take advantage of this feature, were created by ZoomChart, and they are available for download today. They've built out these visuals based off of feedback that they have been getting from users since they launched the first set of ZoomChart visuals for Power BI last year. And so they've taken all that feedback and released this new set of visuals that are very advanced and very powerful and take advantage of this feature. And you'll be able to, I'll go into them in a minute, but you'll be able to use these custom visuals with a free 30-day trial to try them out before deciding you want to purchase these more advanced visuals. So with that, I'll now dive into the first one of those visuals, which is the advanced donut visual. The first Zoom charts visual we're going to talk about is their advanced donut visual. And this visual is really designed for exploring multiple level data in depth as a donut or pie or gauge structure. And really, it has really good intuitive navigation and really fancy, really cool animations as well. It's going to make the visual look really cool and stand out and really improve the look of your report. So if I switch over to their sample, I'm just using the free version of it, but you can see here there's a donut by default with segments for each of their job titles. And if I click on one of them, say head of marketing, you'll see this is really nice animation that happens, and the view I had before is now on the inside, and I can see that broken down by the next level. If I click on USA, it pops out because that's the bottom of the hierarchy, and I can click on the center to go back, and it goes back that way, and I continue to click and go back on my data to really explore that whole hierarchy. Like I said earlier, this visual is an in-app purchase visual, so if I go to the formatting pane, I can see that there aren't any formatting options available to me right now, but if I look at this first card, which is the paid features card, when I enable that, I'll see that the visual has updated to be a little bit fancier looking, and it prompts me to either enter in my email to start a free trial, or to go and buy my own license. And once I have the key from that, I'm able to put that into the formatting pane under the license settings, so that the visual now knows that I've paid for it, and then I can get access to all of these really great formatting capabilities that have shown up here. Some of the great formatting capabilities that are available for this visual include being able to switch between a pie, a donut, or a gauge to pick the right layout that's best for the data I'm trying to represent. You'll also see back here that there's an other group that just lumps all the other small slices together, and I'm going to be able to define the number of slices I need, and everything else will be grouped into that other bucket. So I can continue to highlight the most important information available to me. I'm also able to fully customize the labels, including are they inside or outside, the appearance and everything, just to make them suit my needs. And the same thing applies to the legend. I'm able to customize it as well. Another nice feature about this visual related to that drill down experience I showed you, that also works really well with touch, and it can go up to 9 levels deep in terms of drill for really in-depth analysis within the one chart. The second zoom chart visual is the advanced combo visual, and this again is really designed for in-depth exploration with intuitive navigation, really cool animations, works well on desktop and mobile, and it's all geared to having a really beautiful standout report that's taking advantage of a combo dual axis experience. So if I switch over to their sample visual, you can see here that there's a combo chart, and I have on the x-axis I have my department, and if I drill down I'd see the titles of the people in those departments, and then my first series is the payout, and the second series is the payout base. And you can see here as I hover over, you can see a really cool tooltip that shows me the information for each of those I'm hovering on, and if I click on a bar, it will drill down into that specific bar with that really fancy animation, and so I can see the breakdown. And again, this is an in-app purchase visual, so if I go into the formatting pane, I can see that toggle for the paid features, and if I chose to sign up for the free trial or buy it and put in the licensing key in the pane, I'd be able to do all of their cool customizations. If I toggle that on real quick, you can see how many formatting options are added in. I'm able to do things like adjust the chart types to choose from a line, a column, or an area, and customize the appearance for each of those series. I can dynamically zoom in and out to change the size of the columns by a pinch gesture or dragging the chart. I can combine up to 12 different series on this chart with unlimited categories. The chart is fully customizable, so I can customize the colors, the labels, the fonts, and basically all aspects of it. And of course, again, I can customize the legend position as well if I had that on. And for the columns themselves, I'm also able to pick between stacked and clustered when that's broken down by another series. Their third visual is the advanced time series visual. In this visual, it's very similar to the combo chart. A lot of the same customizations and again, smooth animations, touch experience, tons of formatting control, but it's really geared towards being able to explore time-based data specifically, whereas the combo was more categorical on the axis. So switching to this sample, you can see here I have a view of the chart with a date on the axis, and I'm showing as my two bars the payout and pay base. And again, I get that nice hover effect. And I can click to zoom in, and since this is a time, it drills down into the next level, the date. So I went from a year to month, and I can continue to drill in and see the days as well. And I can click the back button to go up and higher within my hierarchy. I can click and drag around and have a nice effect there. And I can do things like click and drag or control click in here. I can do all sorts of really cool things to just interact with the visual. If I go over to the formatting pane to just turn on the parade feature so you can see all the formatting options again, tons of really cool formatting options. You can do things like switch between a column, a line, or an area, and customize the appearance of each of the series. Look at all the different combinations possible. There's actually more than 150 variations on this chart when you combine all the different charts types and options together. Whenever the data is aggregated on the visual side, you also have multiple options on how to aggregate the data at larger units, and starting from milliseconds all the way up to decades. You can show up to 12 series on this chart with unlimited categories, so you can explore your data all on this one chart. And like I showed you earlier, you can zoom in and out, drill down and up on the time unit. And again, the visual itself and the legend are just fully customizable. Colors, labels, fonts, placement of stuff, you name it, you can customize it on this visual.
Continuing our list of custom visuals released this month, we are on our fourth visual from Zoom Charts, which is the Advanced Network Visual. With this custom visualization, you can explore and filter your data in a network layout. Now let's take a look at the report. Here in our report, we're looking at a network visualization showing payout by department, region, and seniority. Now let me show you how to create this network visualization. You're going to need to drag and drop the department, region, and seniority into the nodes, and then for the measure, you'll use payout. From there, we can then select various nodes and filter the table that's on our right based on those values. So if I click on marketing, it's going to filter to department as marketing on the table to the right. Then we can also do this for seniority and filter to 3 years. And finally, we can also do this for USA for region. And you'll notice that if you have a really small node, you also have the option to zoom in. So here we're better able to see Central America. And we also have other options here to refresh to go back to the original size. And you can even lock it if you don't want the size to change. Furthermore, there's option to move one step back in the navigation or even toggle to full screen mode. Now, if you pay for this visualization, you get a bunch of other customization options. You can customize how the node looks, its shape and size. You can customize how the links look, dash potentially if you want it, how you want the decorations from or to each node, and then even the color of it. So here, let's go ahead and change it to blue, and let's go ahead and change the width here to make it larger. The next custom visual on our list is from 3AG Systems, which is the line chart with absolute variance. Now let's take a look at the demo report. This custom visual allows you to plot two series while automatically calculating the absolute variance between them. And it's very easy to set up and typically used for actual versus planned data or actuals versus previous, forecast versus planned, and forecast versus previous. So let's take a look how to set some of these up. In this visual, we see that the actuals in black are plotted alongside the planned in white. And above the two series, we have the absolute variance plotted automatically. Now, to set this up, you'll need a category for your x-axis, and you'll need to add the value for your actuals, and then a planned for your planned data. It's a very similar process when you want to set up your actuals versus previous year, except this time, instead of adding value for your plan, you add to the previous year. And again, for forecast versus planned, you just need to add in your forecast value here. And similar for forecast versus previous. So the previous year goes there, and your forecast value is there. There are also a ton of formatting options. For example, you can change the font size of the column chart labels. You can also turn on or off the chart series text labels. You can customize the number of decimal places that you'd like to see. And you can also invert the variance colors if you'd like. You can also format how you want to see the date, whether you want to show the year, the month, or the day. And you can also choose the units that you'd like to see the value in, whether that be millions or thousands. And finally, you can change the chart min and max scale percentage. Jumping into our next custom visual, we have the summary table, which allows you to build a table in JSON. So let's go ahead and take a look. This custom visual is useful for creating a summary table that can be stylized in JSON. Let me show you how to create a basic one and then modify the styling of a row. So the first field that should go in the field well will be our account group. This is going to represent the rows in our table. Then we want to add in measures we're interested in. Once we've added the measures, we need to actually edit the table in JSON. So go ahead and click Generate Template, and there we see the JSON there, and we can modify directly in the editor while looking at the preview. So let's start first by changing the titles. Now let's add some stylization to calculate a business result. So we're going to add a new row here, which I've copied and pasted the JSON. And this is our business results. So we titled it business results, and we have a formula here that is computing based on the rows that are expensed versus revenue. And there you have it. We also added a styling here, and we can go ahead and click Save. And go back to the report. So as you can see with this custom visual, not only can you build a simple table, but just using JSON, you can tweak it so you can get the custom look you're going for. The next custom visual on our list is a fun way to show KPI while also including an image as the background. Let's take a look at the demo report. So here we have a simple KPI just to show you the calculation that's happening. It's looking at the sum of the sales divided by the sum of the target and putting it in a percentage. So that's where you get the 50.50%. Now to set this up, you'll need to drag in sales as the value and then target being the target. Now to add a trend here, we're looking at country as the trend. So here you have various countries in alphabetical order, and we can use this table then to filter the KPI and see which combination would result in what percentage of meeting the target. Now let's move on to the fun part where we're going to add an image behind this KPI, and it will show fireworks when we're above 50% and then show a thunderstorm image when we're 50% or below. So let me show you how to set this up. So click on the formatting pane, and then you'll see the tab KPImg options. There you can paste in the image URL for the OK image, which is the fireworks, and then the KO or knockout image, which would be the thunderstorm. Here's where you also specify what is the maximum value that you would consider knockout. So that would be our 50% or 0.5. You can also customize the font colors here. So here, let's change that to red. You can also change the font family and transparency. And you'll also notice there's further options to change what is your series for the knockout and the OK values and the neutral. So we can take a look at that further by adding a trend to our KPI image. And then here we can change the series color there to the lighter green. We have another KPI custom visual for you guys this month. This one's called the Ultimate KPI Card. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the demo report. In a single KPI card, you can measure a value and compare it to one or two different reference values, such as a planned value or the previous year value. Now let's take a look how you'd build one of these. So before we get started, you're going to want to email license@dataviz.boutique, and there they can provide you a trial code so that you don't have watermarks on your visualization. So let's go ahead and add the custom visual to our canvas, and then resize it to our liking. And then we're going to go ahead and drag and drop the actuals into the value field well, and the plan field into plan, and then our previous year into the last year field well. And again, to remove the watermarks, we're going to need to copy and paste the code which we got. And now you see the watermarks have disappeared. So now there's a ton of customization options. Let's take a look at those. So in the formatting pane, you'll notice that there's options to change name, value, and even change the plan and previous year. Things like font colors and font family. We can also change some of the arrow settings, such as changing negative is good. There's an option there, and you can even change what values for the colors you want for positive versus negative. Furthermore, you can change the arrow color and the arrow size. We also have options for the chart, such as the border and the background color. We can add a blue background here and tweak the transparency. So there you have is you can create this highly customized KPI which shows multiple references to plan and previous year. The last custom visual on our list is a violin plot, which is kind of like a combination of a box plot and a kernel density plot. Now with the box plot, you see information such as the median, mean, and the range of quartiles, but you don't get to see good representation of what the histogram of the samples might look like. And that's where you'd use the kernel density plot. Now let's take a look at the report to see this in action. So here we see our violin plot in the left-hand corner, and we're looking at data of various samples and measuring their tooth growth in length millimeters. We want to be able to use the box plot of the violin to look at values such as the mean, median, and the first and third quartiles, which represent the box. We're also using the kernel density plot, which is representing essentially like the histogram, but providing a smoother curve using a various kernel function. So to get started, you'll need a measure or value to analyze, and you also need a field that represents the samples. So here's our samples fields, and then we brought in length as what we're measuring. Keep in mind there's also limitations on the number of samples that this visual can handle, so you're going to want to make sure you don't go above that maximum. Additionally, you can add in a category as an optional field. So here we've added dose to look at the violin plot for various doses. You can also colorize the different categories. So in data colors, you just make sure that toggle is on by category. And you can also sort however you'd like, whether you want to sort by the mean or the category, and the order, whether it's ascending or descending. Now, the next part is a little bit more advanced, and this is if you want to tune your violin. There are different types of kernel functions that you can use, and here are the 4 that are provided. Furthermore, you can also change how you want the sampling resolution to be. There's also an option where you can specify the bandwidth, and this is mainly going to impact your kernel density plot. And there you see in the formatting pane is where you can change them. And furthermore, there are a ton of customizations where you can control how you want your box plot to look. And that includes whether you want to hide or show it. You can change the color, transparency, whiskers on and off, show the median, hide the mean, and control the median line and mean colors. Now moving to the data connectivity section, the first on our list is the Microsoft Graph Security Connector. With this connector, you can unlock a holistic view of security and risk across your enterprise. Additionally, this connector comes with a sample dashboard and template to help you get started. Next, we have a BI connector for OBIEE. This connector allows for staging of data from OBIEE to be visualized in Power BI. It's a major stepping stone for organizations to transition from traditional BI platforms to a modern data visualization tool. The next connector on our list is a MarkLogic connector. For a bit of background, MarkLogic is a NoSQL database that uses a multi-model approach, providing the flexibility to store data from various sources. Additionally, MarkLogic offers enterprise-grade security that can be scaled to your needs. Continuing the list, we have Kronos Workforce Dimensions. Powered by Kronos D5 platform, Workforce Dimensions offers employee experience and operational insights into managing your workforce. Next, we have the SurveyMonkey connector. With around 20 million questions answered a day, SurveyMonkey is one of the most popular data survey platforms on the web. Now with this connector, you can visualize your customer or company surveys within Power BI. Presto from Qubole is the next connector on our list. Qubole offers Presto as a service on Microsoft Azure and AWS to handle ad hoc queries across petabytes of data. With Presto's connector, users can run fast interactive analytics on federated data sources. This can include data in a data lake, relational databases, NoSQL databases, and real-time data streaming applications. Next, we have the QuickBase connector. For some background, QuickBase enables you to build your own custom application for you to manage your data and automate processes. Now, last on our list for data connectivity, we have the Sagra Emigo connector. Emigo supports sales organizations by automating daily sales activities. With this connector, you can visualize your Emigo inventory data, orders, surveys, and more, all in Power BI. We have one final update for this month. We now have a friendlier, more helpful error message when facing model loading issues with Live Connect or Direct Query connection. This updated message may help you debug the issue faster on your side, and if you contact support, the message details will help the support team find the issue quicker as well. We hope you liked all the great features released this month. Like always, we encourage you to try them out and give us your feedback. Thank you so much for watching.